Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my light armor Magicka DK build for the Elsweyr patch. Before I get started, let me just say that you do not have to use the heavy attack to kill with this build, but it's like carrying around a single action 44 Magnum. Like, you can just cock the shit back and put a hole through somebody's chest whenever you feel like it. Now let's go ahead and go over the gear. We're using 2-piece Slime Craw, 5-piece Impregnable Armor, 5-piece Bright Throats. All of our gear is the Impenetrable trait. And we have 3 Tri-Stat enchantments, 1 on our head, chest, and legs, and 4 max magic enchantments, 1 on our shoulders, gloves, belt, and boots. I'm in 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. My heavy piece is my chest, my medium piece are my legs, and everything else is light. For my jewelry, all of my jewelry is the protective trait, and it is all enchanted with spell damage glyphs. My Inferno staff is Bright Throats. It is the Nirnhone trait, and I have a shock enchantment on it for that 40% chance to proc concussion, and just because it hits really hard. That procs every 5 seconds, so you figure you got a 40% chance to proc concussion with your shock glyph every 5 seconds. I mean, that's a pretty good chance of hitting that minor vulnerability, which makes the target take 8% more damage from all sources for 4 seconds, and does a little bit of extra shock damage. And on my back bar, I'm using a Bright Throat sword that is Nirnhone with the Berserker enchantment, and a Bright Throat shield that is reinforced with a max Magicka enchantment. I'm using Bright Throats with Impreg since it came out in Murkmire, and it's just a really good combination. Impreg's 2 through 4 piece allows you to make up for some of the stats lost by using the Witch Mother's Potent Brew as a drink, and it makes you very tanky at the same time when combined with Choking Talons, which applies AoE minor maim, which I'll go over later. And I've just been swapping out monster sets. I've tested Bloodspawn, Valken, Zaun, and needs to say the best one in my opinion, Slime Craw, which gives us 1 crit bonus, which I like when I'm in light armor. I like to be over 40% crit on my offensive armor and light armor, and then gives us minor berserk at all times, increasing our damage done by 8%. Bright Throat's 5-piece gives us 2k Magicka on top of an extra 150 mag recovery, and it's almost what the 2 through 4 gives you as well, 2 Magicka bonuses and 127 Magicka regen. But I really enjoy Impreg. This is a CP only build, as Impreg's pretty much useless and no CP due to the lack of crit and no CP. You don't get that 9% from that CP passively it gives us. But I play around with Zons. It is pretty fun, but sometimes it would get like a minute without procking, and then when it would proc, it'd proc on the kid you're putting a power lash that's already at like 2% health. Like, he's already dead. Valken was good, but I don't run that many dots. I'm not running Burning Talons. And you just can't control who the hell this proc's going to land on. Like, when you're in a fight against 4 or 5 people, you got Engulfing and Volatile Armor. You just can't control where it's going to land. And you can't line up anything with it. But for 1v1, 1v2, it's pretty good. Pirate Skeleton's cheese, but I was way too tanky. And Bloodspawn was pretty good too, but I tried relying off the resistance that it provides. I was using 3 arcane traits instead of protective traits, and that's how you get laid out by a stand-in in 1 burst. Can't rely on the resistance provided by Bloodspawn, as it's not always up. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over our skills. Our first skill on our Destruction Staff bar is Elemental Drain. It's a 24-second single target debuff that applies Major Breach and Minor Magicka Steal to our opponent. The Minor Magicka Steal part of this skill is very crucial for our sustain, as it allows us to restore 300 Magicka every 1 second as long as we deal damage to them. The Major Breach is very nice too, as it reduces their spell resistance by 5,280, which if you divide that by 660, which is 1% of mitigation from resistance, winds up giving us another 8% damage done essentially. Our second skill is Molten Armaments. This is our major sorcery buff that also applies to our allies as well. But the important thing about this skill is it increases our heavy attack damage by 50%, which stacks with the Destruction Staff passive of Trifocus. With our Inferno Staff, that increases our heavy attack damage by 12%, and also Ancient Knowledge, which increases our single target damage by 8%. Our third skill is Flame Lash. This is our spammable, and anytime we set an enemy off balance, this becomes Power Lash, which increases the damage of the skill and gives us a massive heal over 2 seconds. As you can see right now, I'm buffed. That's a 13,000 heal. And pretty much to set enemies off balance, to proc that Power Lash, all you have to do is target somebody with a regular Flame Lash that's CC'd or rooted. And we have both in our toolkit. We have Stone Giant as a CC. We can CC our target every 6 seconds with it if they're not CC immune. And then we have Choking Talons, which is our root, which there's only 3-second root immunity or 2-second. I can't remember. They just implemented it and got it to work during the Elsweyr patch when you roll dodge out. Plus, like, forward momentum and like, shuffle, stuff like that. But there's nothing over 4 seconds keeping us from rooting our target. So you want to proc this on the regular because that's a massive heal. You can risk it sometimes and block cast a Power Lash on an opponent that you're trying to burst down. And, like, I'll block on my Destro staff bar while casting this a lot of times. I'll be at like 30% health and pick up that big heal and wind up killing my target in the process and staying alive, fighting the other people. Our fourth skill is Stone Giant. It's a CC that's blockable that deals 100% more damage if you successfully stun the target. It pretty much hits like old C-Frags. That's a pretty big tooltip right there, being a little bit over 5k unbuffed right now. This skill's pretty loaded because it grants us Minor Resolve and Minor Ward as well, which increases our spell and physical resistance by 1,320 for 18 seconds, and we're in light armor. We're clinging on to every little bit of resistance we can get. But that's pretty much, or that's exactly 2% more mitigation for us. But because the skill is an Earth and Heart ability, we get Helping Hands from it as well, which restores 990 stamina, and it grants us 3 ultimate, which can occur every 6 seconds, and also refreshes Mountain's Blessing on our allies, which gives them Minor Brutality for 20 seconds, which is useless for us. Our fifth skill is Cauterize. It's just shy of 2,000 Magicka, and it heals us when we cast it, plus every 5 seconds after that for a total of 15 seconds. 4 ticks. You want to keep this up at all times. Also, it grants us Major Prophecy for having it slotted, but not upon activation, sadly, which increases our spell critical strike chance by 10%. It's a really good ability. You can't really rely on it too much, though, because it will heal guards, and it just goes to anything that's around you within 20 meters to be exact. And whoever has the lowest health, it's going to. You can heal your allies with it, though, too. So keep that in mind. Our ultimate is Ferocious Leap. This ability hits like a Mack truck. It's AoE. And on top of that, it grants us a damage shield for 103% of our max health. So it's offensive and it's defensive, especially when you combine it with Battle Roar, giving us the heal, Magicka, and stamina back. It's only 125 ults. It's the same price as Dawnbreaker. And speaking of Dawnbreaker, be careful when you cast this skill. If you're playing with your Stam allies, you don't want to knock your opponents out of their Dawnbreaker code. You want their abilities to land first. Otherwise, you're going to send all the enemies flying every direction because it's an AoE, knockback, and stun, just big circle. And, yeah, you don't want to screw over your Stam allies, or any allies for that matter. For our Sword and Board bar, our first skill is Choking Talons. This ability is very expensive. It was 3,645 Magicka. Sorry my tooltips look low right now too. My food buff wore off. But anyway, they're an expensive skill. Roots all enemies within 6 meters of us and applies Minor Maim to them as well, reducing their damage done by 15% for 7 seconds, which is huge. Your allies can also activate a very powerful synergy that deals magic damage. I'll show the rotation later, but you want to root your opponents and then bar swap over. Hit them with a Flame Lash to knock them off balance. And that way you can get a Power Lash on them. And it's also going to buff your Stam allies' damage by 10% due to the Exploiter passive in the CP. Which is the Ritual is the main Stam CP tree, I guess I should say, for damage. It increases your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10%, so you're helping out your Stam DPS there. And Power Lash no longer consumes the off-balance, so they'll be off-balance for the full 5 seconds. Our second skill on our Sword and Board bar is Burning Embers. It's a single target damage over time ability that its dot component is pretty terrible, but it heals us for almost all of the damage that it deals. So when you're 1v-Xing, this is a very important skill to tag onto multiple opponents. Second, if you're fighting 1v1 and your opponent puts a burst on you, you can just rake in Embers instead of casting Coag. When Embers is only 1,200 Magicka and Coag's 3,888, you save a lot of resources by just raking in Embers on him and refreshing the dot on the opponent. Our third skill is Coagulating Blood. It's our burst heal. It's just shy of 3,900 Magicka. And it heals us for up to 33% more based on our missing health. So kind of think of it almost like an counter-execute in a little way right there. It's not that strong though. Also grants us Major Fortitude, which is 100% useless. Our fourth skill is Engulfing Flames. This is an AoE cone, so you kind of want to strafe backwards when you cast it because the tip's very small. Oh, that just sounded wrong. It's like Dawnbreaker though. Your opponents can juke it and cause it to miss, but it deals pretty good upfront damage. Let me eat food real quick. There we go. Accurate tooltips. But anyway, it deals a good chunk of upfront damage, being 7,000 some flame damage right there. I'm unbuffed, but it's almost the same as the dot. But however, enemies hit by engulfing flames take 10% more damage from all fire attacks, which is pretty much all of our abilities. Our 5th skill is Volatile Armor. This is our armor buff that also puts out a 10-meter AoE dot when we cast it. It also returns damage to our opponents whenever they hit us with direct damage abilities, which this just got buffed this patch. That's actually a really strong return. Like, I think I was hitting people for like 700 to 900 with it in Cyrodiil, which is a lot of damage for just having an armor buff up. But most importantly, Volatile Armor activates the Burning Heart passive under Draconic Power, which increases our healing received by 12% as long as we have a Draconic Power ability active, which that's the longest duration one in that tree. So it's crucial to keep Volatile up. 12% healing received is insane. Finally, our ultimate on our back bar is Temporal Guard. Do not ever cast this. We slot it because it grants us minor protection. This is from the Stygic Order skill line. You don't get the Earth and Heart Battle Roar Restore for casting an ultimate when you cast Temporal Guard because it resets our Magicka, stamina, and health to what they were 4 seconds ago. You just never cast this. It's on the back bar to protect us while we're casting our Engulfing Flames, our Embers, our Choking Talons, and running our rotation. I mean, you figure Dunk is offensive and defensive because it gives us that damage shield. We get the Battle Roar off of it, the heal and whatnot. Deals a ton of damage and stuns our opponents, gets them the hell off of us. So we can, get some resources back, get a breather, get some space. There's no reason not just to use Dunk for everything. It's cheap too, being 125 ult. So I'm a Dark Elf on this build. And I don't recommend being anything else because the stamina that you get from being a Dark Elf coupled with the Magicka and the spell damage just fits this perfectly. You really don't want any less than 15k stamina on this build. Otherwise, you're going to get CC'd, roll dodge once, and get CC'd again once you're off immunity, and you'll be cooked. I have 64 attribute points in the Magicka, and the Mundus I'm using is the Apprentice, which increases our spell damage by 238. The food/drink we're using is Witchmother's Potent Brew. It's a drink that we use to proc Bright Throats as 5-piece. And this drink increases our Magicka recovery by 278, max Magicka by 2,520, and max health by 2,730. It was recently nerfed by 15%, but Bright Throats is still top dog. It was finally put in line with almost Tri-Stat food and other sets. Just recovery in this game runs 1-to-1 with spell damage. When you can pull spell damage or recovery from food, it's almost a no-brainer. They'd have to severely gimp Witch Mothers and Bright Throats until they make them not top dog. But there's reasons for Tri-Stat food and whatnot too I could go over, but that's another story. The potions we use are Tri-Stat potions. They can be made by combining Lorcan's Tears with Bugloss, Columbine, and Mountain Flower. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over our rotation. Our first skill we cast is Molten Armaments. Bar swap to the back bar, Volatile Armor. Elemental Drain on your target if they're within range, then Cauterize. Bar swap back, Light Attack Engulfing, Light Attack Embers, Light Attack Talons. Bar swap to the front bar, Light Attack Whip. That knocks your opponent off balance, but you can't knock a target skeleton off balance. Light Attack Stone Giant. Your target's now CC'd, so you'll land your Power Lash. And then when they get up from that CC after you hit them with Power Lash, you're going to chase that with a Dunk. Because they're gonna be pretty low health usually at that point. After getting CC'd by Stone Giant and eating that Power Lash, they're going to come up probably with a roll dodge. So you want to use your Dunk right there because it's undodgeable. But other than that, it's pretty simple rotation. You can usually kill kids before that. If you don't have a Dunk ready, go ahead and just sit there and spam Whip on them while your dots tick on them. It won't take that many. The heavy attacks on this build, I like to roll up on a target with heavy attack. So like, if I see him in the distance, I'll try a heavy attack Stone Giant. Shit's very hard, and especially with that shock lift and everything, proccing concussion. The Stone Giant flies faster than the heavy attack. The Stone Giant always hits first, so your target gets CC and he gets drilled upside the head with the heavy attack. It's pretty cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and get over our champion points. Start with the green tree, the tower. Have 66 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free by 22%. 1 into Siphoner to apply that debuff that our opponents have to purge off. 9 into Sprinter to reduce the cost of sprint by 6%. I like to run. Even though I'm a Magicka, I like to sprint around a tower. And that's a really good return on that too. And then 3 points into Bash and Focus to reduce the cost of Bash by 2%. I did this to round off to a whole number, so I'm not wasting points. Second to Lover. 64 into Arcanist, increasing our Magicka recovery by 13%. 27 to Tenacity to increase our heavy attack Magicka and stamina restored by 7%. You will have to occasionally heavy attack on that Sword and Board bar to get stamina. And occasionally you will have to do it on your Destro bar too. If you struggle with sustaining on this build, feel free to drop one of them spell damage enchantments for a Magicka cost reduction enchantment. On the Shadow tree, where you got 44 into Tumbling to reduce the cost of roll dodge by 17%, and then 56 into Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of block by 20%. For the blue tree, the Apprentice, we have 43 into Blessed, increasing our healing done by 10%, 56 into Elfborn, increasing our critical damage and critical healing by 20%, 56 into Elemental Expert, which increases all of our Magicka-based damage by 12%, and then 40 into Spell Erosion, increasing our spell penetration by 3,379. For the Astronaut, we have 66 into Master at Arms, increasing our direct damage done by 22%, and then 9 points into Staff Expert, increasing our staff damage by 6%. I don't put any into Thaumaturge or any points to the Ritual for that matter, because these 3 stars are for stamina. Thaumaturge increases the damage of your dots, but Mag DK's dots aren't high damage dots like Stam DK's are, or like Templar. They're utility dots. Embers has a heal, engulfing buffs your other damage. And I'm not using Burning Talons, I use Choking. Now if I was using Burning Talons, I'd put points into here. And like Volatile Armor, its dots pathetic as well. It's not the main point of the skill. The main point of the skill is get that 12% healing received and get the resistance. So you can add, like I have had 75 points into here for the Exploiter passive for quite a while. That was really good for one person. It worked for fighting one person. But at the same time, like, my Embers tooltip only went up by 1,500. Divide that by 10 seconds. Actually, you should divide that by 8 seconds because they finally changed Embers and now follows the regular dot standards now. So you figure you take 1,500 divided by 8 seconds. Like, that's 187 damage per second. It's not worth it. Even if you figure Engulfing, which is, I think Engulfing tooltip only went up by like 1,100. I probably managed to make all that damage back, hitting harder up front with the penetration. I got extra heal and receive under the CP setup. Tons more crit damage and crit healing. I got 2 more % into Elemental Expert. I got points into Staff Expert. Like, I feel like I've hit way harder up front as well. So don't get caught in the Thaumaturge. But if you do run Burning Talons on your Mag DK, because you have somebody in your group with wizards or whatnot, feel free to put points into here. But just don't go overboard with it. Alright, so let's go on to the red tree. 66 into Ironclad to reduce our damage taken by direct attacks by 22%. 2 into Spell Shield, increasing our spell resistance by 209. 30 into Resistant, increasing our critical resistance by 844. For the lady, we have 37 into Thick Skinned, reducing our damage taken from dots by 15%. 6 into Light Armor Focus, increasing our physical resistance by 614. Remember, don't go overboard on the star because 660 resistance equals 1% of mitigation. 49 into Hardy, reducing our damage taken from physical-based attacks by 11%, and then 37 into Elemental Defender, reducing our damage taken by magic-based attacks by 9%. For the Lord, we have 43 points into Quick Recovery, increasing our healing received by 10%. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys did enjoy the video, like, subscribe. I got tons of other videos coming out this patch. The intro kind of sucked. I apologize for that. Most people are out leveling Necros right now. Most of the time I was either A, fighting tank Zergs, B, fighting 1 or 2 people that have no idea what the hell they're doing on low-B-ass Necros. So, because they're trying to get their vigor on their Stam Crows, like, that just wasn't anything good to go fight the last 3 days. So I had to work 12s earlier this week when Elsweyr dropped, so I didn't really get a time to run around. But I got some really good 1vx's on this, like 8, 9 people, but they're really dragged out. A lot of tanky players, and Magicka doesn't have an execute, so you kind of, you know what I mean? You get to you got to deal with people at like 20% health for like 10 seconds just spamming roll dodge. It gets pretty damn irritating. But I'm doing a Stam DK next. It's probably going to take me no more than like 3 days to put up. And I absolutely love that class. I got a really good build on that class. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the Magicka Dragonknight build, Infernal Magister for the Elsweyr patch. Have a great day.